Let's now talk about this latest development. Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan is a senior fellow for Middle East Policy International Institute for Strategic Studies. He's joining us live from Bahrain. Dr. Al-Hassan, welcome. What, in your view, defines a Hamas target? Because Israel or the IDF has been issuing excuses such as the compound they struck had Hamas elements when, in real sense, most of the victims are civilians.
It's very difficult to corroborate these claims that the Israeli military makes. There's really almost no way to independently verify the identity of these individuals, especially since Israel continues to block access for foreign journalists and frankly often targets local journalists who would otherwise have been able to provide some coverage. But since Gaza remains blocked out from international coverage and reporting to a very large extent, it becomes obviously very difficult to verify these claims. Now, beyond that, the question of whether it is legitimate to kill and maim hundreds and hundreds of civilians in order to take out one or two or more Hamas militants, I think, has become extremely pressing. We've seen Israel in the past justify the killing of hundreds under the pretext of taking out even one Hamas commander. And I think that this obviously is a point that raises international concern, and one that international legal bodies and UN panel of experts have picked up on. So I think not only is it difficult to verify those claims by the Israeli military, it's also questionable whether, even if in fact these claims were to be true, whether that would be a legitimate way to conduct military operations.
Dr. Al-Hassan, who do you think is the impediment to the ceasefire talks? There is a new effort to have the talks in Doha or Cairo. Israel says they will attend. The United Nations and the EU are supporting this initiative, but Hamas has not confirmed their participation.
Well, I think traditionally the biggest stumbling block to the negotiations has been Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He has often supported in rhetoric these negotiations, but in reality has behaved in ways that were very clearly meant to undermine them. And so taking high-profile action, like targeting Iran, first by taking out its consulate in Damascus, and then by assassinating Hamas's political chief, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, was obviously meant to raise tensions. We've also seen large-scale attacks on civilian infrastructure. And I think that many have interpreted Israel's taking out of Hamas's political chief, who is a soft target, who advertises his movement in advance and so on. He's not a military commander who's hiding in tunnels and so on. I think that was also interpreted by Hamas as a clear message of what Israel's real intent here. Now, on the other side, in Hamas, it's quite possible that with Yahya Sinwar formally in charge of Hamas and with Ismail Haniyeh out of the way, we might see a hardening of Hamas's position now that Yahya Sinwar really encompasses both the military and political authority in an uncontested manner. So we could see a hardening of positions. I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu has really been serious about de-escalation or about hostage release or about bringing about a ceasefire. He's very clearly rejected many of these demands. He's very clearly articulated his goal, his unrelenting goal of totally destroying Hamas. And it's difficult to see how that objective can be reconciled with a real desire for a ceasefire negotiation. But we can also see, I think, potentially a hardening of Hamas's position now that Yahya Sinwar is fully in charge.
Dr. Al-Hassan, finally, do you agree there's a drive to urgently hold these negotiations because of the fear of a regional conflict escalating?
I think fear of a regional conflict is one driver that's motivating some of the urgency behind these efforts. But in reality, it's difficult to see why this attempt would be different from its predecessors. I don't see the United States exerting real pressure on Israel in the form of withholding aid or withholding weapons or threatening coercive action on Israel. And so I think without any real exercise of leverage on the negotiating parties, which is something we haven't really seen so far, it's really difficult to see why this round of negotiations would be more successful than its predecessors.
I've been talking to Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan. He's a senior fellow for Middle East Policy, International Institute for Strategic Studies. Dr. Hassan, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.